Today I'm sharing about openness going up, prejudice going down, and a couple talks I had with people. And I'll end with the left side of the body, really. Openness to receive is like left, and open to give is the right. So there's many experts that still have a lot to learn. We're here to break the patterns. Some people become experts on certain patterns and then they can't get out of their own expertise. But none of us, we didn't have to choose to have a lifetime. We did have to choose to have this lifetime. So, excuse me, I'm almost better. We're here to experience and learn. I'm here to experience and learn. We can validate the past and plant seeds for the future. That's what it is to be in the present. We have presence. We're multidimensional, multi-perspectival, and the wisdom under why our soul chose to be in this time, place, race, location body type, and obviously also any addiction to like dependencies, attachments. But I didn't actually mean to say that. So, gender. Anyway, it's all this is to heal our baggage, to get under our name and our form, become clairsentient, claircognizant. Clairsentient and claircognizant is to be clear in our seeing and in our thinking, in our knowing, and in our consciousness. We are all sentient beings, and we can stay teachable by learning everything fresh and keeping on returning to the truth that no one wants to be in pain. The body doesn't want to feel it either. So the consciousness and the one that's watching and also the one experiencing, neither part of us wants to feel the pain. It's okay for me, like learning how to let my guard down and not be afraid of being attacked while vulnerable or taken advantage of or disrespected or violated is, including I was bullied a little for snoring when I was young, and learning how to snore and sleep in front of others. We all learn different ways, the same things. We can validate the past, bless the future, looking at things in different ways, experiencing, going through it, teaches us wisdom. And we can choose to influence with discernment and attention people who learned from us when we thought we were the odd one out. They benefited from us, which means we can say what happened not just to guilt. Like, so we back up and say, when we validate the past, we're not just trying to guilt someone, we're saying this is what happened. When we bless the future, we're willing to look at things in certain ways and choose influences that have discernment and intention, because we don't know that by being a little different and stepping out of our comfort zone, which can be difficult, experience going through it teaches the wisdom. We all learn in different ways the same things. It's like people benefited from us during this time, and so we have to get past the name and form. People benefited from us not knowing what we were doing, being slightly insecure in a new element of our nature, in our path, and that's why we have to have gratitude for role models. So I think of my mother with this guy that was Hispanic and this guy that was black, and how it taught me to be okay with different races versus like some other people who had a similar upbringing to me became afraid of people who looked, in the pigment a little different. So anyway, these judgments are extreme when they're about name and form. We even know that something called genocide, trying to kill generations, trying to kill nations, trying to kill races, even genders, right? So when our own personal power, we're connected to it, it's not through our appearance. And we also know that unity is a two-way thing, so it requires both having the energy of giving ourselves and receiving other. It's actual connection, which is a mutual connection. And, so, once we open something up and it's out in the open, it's exposed, it can never be fully closed or never been opened again. It doesn't mean that it causes permanent damage. That's what people are afraid of. But it does mean it was never going back to its unrevealed, never before opened state. There is an irreversible sense of time moving forward as we become aware of new aspects of ourselves and others. Like, that's why it's not always so worth it to rush. Sometimes it's okay with just being and letting things, but then at the same time we don't want to, like, a lot of us have an experience we don't want to end before we get to uncover everything and see everything and know everything about life. So we find that balance. We don't either want to corner and bombard people because they remind us of someone else or triggered what's unresolved from a dynamic with someone else or caused fear based on previously avoided grief that we didn't expect to be relevant. So that's also in a way of choosing to be good in the world and not choosing to be bad. It doesn't mean we intentionally want to hurt anyone, but it means that in being open and not having prejudice and not preconceived judgments, preconceived notions, preconceived assumptions, we also will not force people into the roles that we have from our past, and for our healing, bombarding them, cornering them, causing fear, bringing grief, baggage. Then I had a talk with Michelle and this woman, or no, maybe this man, I forget, somebody named Mooti. And we talked about how ants keep going even when you have your foot over them, and they also can do what they need to regardless of space and materials. Like, the sidewalk crack and a single grain of sand, it's sufficient for them. They can figure it out. And when like a grain of bread that's the size of a sand, they carry it and it's heavy for them, and sometimes they carry a crumb bigger than that, and they go through the cracks. And they're not afraid of something right over their head. They do what they need to do. And also we learned that the lover is beloved. When we have the pleasure of enjoying a flower, I think I learned this from the Sufi people. Sufi is like this ecstatic, loving, sort of beloved is lover kind of dynamic of life. So the lover is the beloved, and the beloved is the lover. So the pleasure of enjoying the flower comes through me, not the flower. So I am loving the flower because the flower is bringing me pleasure. The flower itself is not the lover. I'm the lover. But the beloved, the flower, the more I can open for the love to come through me, the more I can be filled with love. So it's like I'm the hose, the pipe receiving what the flower triggers it, right? So and then also when we have an open space, it could create its own systemic power, whirling at a center that's being fed and then feeding this around. So it's like the energy starts to work with itself, and then it gets bigger and bigger, and it could affect the whole area. So this is when there's emptiness. It could, create, and we know that kind of what people like to say, re-explain the Big Bang is kind of like the sense that there was fluctuations in, and then they sort of interacted with each other, and then everything came out of that. So we can see it in the microcosm and the macrocosm. And then I had a talk with this woman named Zoe about self-respect. So we have openness, we have self-respect. How we can take what we need and leave the rest, and new boundaries that are reasonable and respectable, but no one will respect them if we don't respect them ourselves, means we got to decide what's okay for us while still keeping in mind there's a civil society. We have to make accommodations for each other, and whatever this is, like, is this food or person a good idea for me? Doesn't mean do I like this, it means is it a good idea for me? That's new boundaries, and we have like if things are a good idea for us or not, and then we have to be able to respect them. That's why we don't need to run around hoping people are going to notice our changes. Probably it'll be people we're outgrowing anyway because we needed their approval, proving that we're growing. Like they made us feel or think that we needed to because they felt we weren't enough, adequate, or sufficient, or that we were too much or intense or dramatic as the is version of us, as the one as the I am. We don't have to explain or elaborate all the time. We kind of save a lot of our energy when we're not trying to be someone for people. That's another boundary, and people have to want to heal it to come to us for it. We can't waste all our time and energy because we don't want to leave anyone behind, because like I just said, the person has to let us kind of stop proving and see who's accepting us. And when we prioritize what's important to us, that's our God-given birthright. Our peace, our joy, our attention, our security, resources like food and money. And we don't have to give pearls to swine. We're trusty. We don't need to lower the goods. If God gives us these things, we don't need to give it to others. This is all part of self-respect. And I'll continue here with the joints and connective tissue of the left side of my body and my pains. And I went into a deep meditation to learn about what's on the left side of the body. Now, Kabbalistically, this is the receiving, the power, the strength. We say gevura, the judgment. It's the feminine, but it's also the one that takes in, and it's the one that has the stopping. And when we say a man is gibor, gevura, he's powerful. It's many things. It's feminine, it's nourishment, wisdom, trust, it's asking for help, because we take with our left hand. It's receiving, it's creativity, artistry, it's tender love and care, TLC. And also, it's our non-conscious guilt that is regarding aggressiveness that's contained. So we might be doing benevolent acts to try to expiate the feelings, which is very futile. Like we're trying to do nice things with our side of us that really needs to receive. We're trying to give from that place. It's not going to work. And some things that I got left that I healed. I want to remind always, I wrote this 4 or 5 years ago, maybe more, about being too vulnerable or embarrassed. These were things I got in my left side of my body, and I healed the blocking them. So I might still be working on them, or I might have resolved certain aspects, or maybe I went deeper into it. Who knows? But it's about like when we go down the body, we see there's humility, splendor, majesty, and then we go up the body, it's like understanding and um, it's about judgments, and there's a place in the middle where the right and the left come together, but this is more the left side of the body. So some people who learn Kabbalah are afraid of the left side and are afraid of even the feminine, the women, or are afraid of receiving. And so that's what I'm saying here. Like, it's worth it to go into this and look at what's in there. So my mother treated me like a garbage disposal. Like, better you should eat everything off your plate than we throw something away that doesn't taste good to you or feels not fresh. Clenching in instead of relaxing and releasing. Shame is a parenting tool, loses its power when we talk about it. Like, the more I say I feel inherently unworthy of love, the more I'm like, how could I be so inherently unworthy of love? God made me, and there's plenty of things that I could love about myself. There are people who have less in those areas that are loved. Like, so it could be something else, like, is going on here where, like, maybe, anyway, take the charge out when we start to say, I don't have to be ashamed of who I am. It was a tool my parents used to control me. In other words, when we stop trying to control ourselves and we actually tell the things like, I don't feel worthy of love, which is, we try to control that. We try to appear lovable. Like, as I mentioned, we try to get approval and prove our worth. When we start to say, I feel worthless, actually, you don't want to do that all the time to everyone. Like, we don't want to be that burden, but we also take away the charge out of feeling ashamed for who we just are. The I am, that we're not too much or intense or insufficient or not enough or not adequate or too dramatic. And then also in this place, we can be overgiving, overcommitted, distracted, or even blame others for us not taking time out to give ourselves space and quiet. And this is also working on tolerance by not reacting. The left side of the body is the place where we react from. The right side of the body is the place where we have to give from. So you have to be able to see what you have in order to give. When you're giving, like as if you're electrocuted, like from a place of not feeling worthy or from a place of fear, it's the left side. And grief, obviously, expressing anger releases the pain because underneath the anger is the pain. So if we've wrapped up the pain in anger, we have to express the anger. Then there's the pain under. Or we could start to learn how to feel the pain rather than wrapping it up in anger. And this is also including being shamed for having shame. We might wrap our shame up with a gift wrapping of shame, and then the gift of the shame is that we're actually worthy as we are. But we were ashamed of feeling ashamed. We'll pretend that we don't even feel unworthy, for example. And then in the grief, it's like love that has nowhere to go, or a desire, we dared to desire for what didn't continue or exist. So it was like someone who died, or the relationship died, or the version of the person we thought they were is not really there. And grief, so we have nowhere to no one to share the love with. And that's a different way of looking at grief. It's saying, I have a desire to love. Like, the left side is telling us, I have a desire to love. It's for me to love. I am filled with love. Remember what I said about the flower? I'm filled with love, so I love to share. Like, we want to feel that love. And then things like not loving ourselves, not loving our body could be, like, for me, it was hygiene issues. Like, someone's not showering, not brushing my teeth, not keeping things clean, eating things that were not not washing the pot first, trying to look around to think what's hygiene, like, I don't know, just touching, laying on the floor without changing my clothes or showering, and then laying in the bed. When I say laying on the floor, I mean in the park, laying outside, like, or laying on my floor in my apartment, not like on the pavement everywhere, but I guess in the park sometimes dogs pee there, so we're all part of something because the rain washes it away. At a certain point, we can't avoid everything. We don't want to get obsessive compulsive, but obsessing compulsive also is from, like, not meditating or moving for receiving, like, or withholding praise because we don't want anyone to feel like they're more powerful than us, or breaking our agreements, not being able to have the self-control, the self-respect, the self-power, being too vulnerable and embarrassed, like shame around being insecure or awkward with a physical body, like being too shy and, like, not even being able to make eye contact with someone you like, or what else could I say? Like, eating in private, not admitting I'm hungry because it might look like, if I'm overweight, like, oh no, they're going to think that so it's like we start to overthink the fact that, like, how we're showing up just as we are is okay. And this is obviously not listening enough or being heard, because if we just heard that we're unworthy to ourselves, we try to do what makes us feel worthy, like we would for anyone else. And I've done this before, but like, I think I've done this mostly with prayer and incense meditation, and then with like journaling and art meditation. So, but when we step out of the mass hallucination, which is our culture, we can actually be open to something new. So I hope that this was interesting to you, and I wish you well. Have a good night.